Hi everybody, this is Raphael from Ohio Tropics, and in today's video I'm going to show you the most efficient way that you can propagate your pothos plants. You can go from this to this by using my methods that I'll outline in this video. Look at how nice and full this plant is, and I also have this one up here that I created the same way. So without further ado, let me show you exactly how I did this. I'm going to cut off a nice long vine here. I'm going to cut it about, right about there. Nice long vine, plenty of material to make a lot of plants. All right, let's make some cuttings finally. So what you want to do is create individual node cuttings, so single node cuttings. Let's say you take 2 or 3 cuttings of your pothos, you root them, you plant them in a pot. You're never going to get a really full plant. You need a lot of cuttings. So what I'm about to show you now is the most efficient way to do that. So here's my vine that I just cut off, and what I'm going to do in this case, so this is the very tip. It's got 2 leaves here at the end. This one's going to look a little bit different, but take a look at right here. You can already see an aerial root growing, and at this point, this is the node where the leaf and the petiole meet your vine. So I'm going to cut right underneath that point, right about there. And that's my first cutting. All the rest of them are going to look slightly different. That's just because it's at the tip of the vine. Each cutting is going to have 1 leaf only. And I'm just going to cut on either side of the vine. So here's my leaf, here's my petiole. I'm just going to follow it to the vine right here. Again, here's your roots. There's a couple roots here that you can actually see already starting to form. I'm going to cut on either side of that. And I'm going to repeat that for the whole vine. So I'm going to cut right there. And then I'm going to cut right there. There we go. As simple as that. So your cuttings are going to look like that. Each of these cuttings will produce a new vine. So that's the beauty in this. And you want to cram a ton of these inside each pot, and I'll go into that a little bit later. So let me just go ahead and make all these cuttings first, and then we'll move on to the next step. So here are all my cuttings. I ended up making 23 separate cuttings. And like I said, each one of these is going to grow its own vine. And the rule of thumb that I like to keep in mind is after you root your pothos cuttings and you're ready to plant them into a pot, you don't want to just put 1 or 2 cuttings into a pot. You really want to add a lot more so that you end up with a nice full plant. So my rule of thumb that I use is take a look at your diameter of your pot and use at least 1 cutting per inch of the pot. So let's say you have a 4-inch pot, add at least 4 cuttings. You can even add 5. But at least 4 cuttings. If you have an 8-inch pot, add at least 8. You can add more. That's a minimum number. You don't want to jam it up too much, but to show you an example, this is actually the amount of cuttings. This is 23 cuttings. It's about what I used in the 2 baskets that I showed you. Those are 16-inch baskets that I planted those cuttings in that produced those plants. So 1 to 1.5 times of the diameter of the pot, that's how many cuttings that you can safely put inside your pothos pots when you pot them up. Next, what we're going to do is we're simply going to root these in water. You can put them directly into soil. That would be the most efficient way to do it, but I like to see the roots starting and then I can go ahead and plant them in soil later on. These are amazing. I love these propagation vessels. I will include a link in the description below to these, along with a coupon code that you can use for my subscribers to get a discount on them. These are awesome. These are made by Modern Botanical, and I will be making a video specifically just on these propagation units later to show you the various kinds that you can use, and they're also really versatile. So more on that a little bit later on. So I'm just going to go ahead and put these in water. Make sure that your roots, the aerial roots here coming out of the node, are underwater. So really that's all you want to make sure you have submerged. So I'm going to put a few in here. Maybe I'll put 3 or so in each of these. And then the rest I will put in this container that I've added some water to. I did put a little bit of water. Now this one is not a clear container. You can use clear or opaque. It's not going to make much of a difference really. So I'm going to put all these in here. And there we go. I have them all in water now. I'm going to show you where I'm going to place mine for the rooting process to begin. You do not want to keep your cuttings in a dark location. Place them wherever you would place your growing plants. So I'm going to place mine directly in front of an eastern facing window on one of my plant stands, and I'm going to keep them there until I get roots that are maybe about 1/2 inch to 1 inch long, and then I'm going to go ahead and plant them in potting mix. And I'll show you that step shortly here. As far as the speed of rooting goes, it can vary pretty drastically depending on your conditions. Light is number 1. You do want to make sure you have good enough light. Temperature is also really important. Pothos like it warm. If you have a room that's 55 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Fahrenheit, it's going to root a lot more slowly than if your room was warmer, 70, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And so on. I've seen pothos root anywhere from even a couple days to a couple weeks or so in good conditions. So here we have our cuttings that I just made. I put them right in front of an eastern facing window on one of my plant shelves. So I'm going to leave them here until they root, until the roots are about 1/2 inch to 1 inch long, and then I'm going to go ahead and plant them in potting mix. Here are some rooted pothos cuttings, and you can see that I let the roots grow a little bit too long. I normally would recommend letting them grow only about 1/2 inch to 1 inch long so that the transition to soil will be a little bit easier. But this is okay too, these still worked. You can also see the beginnings of a new vine on each of those cuttings as well. Here you can see a cutting up close. You can see the roots growing out of the node as well as a new vine starting to form. Next, I planted all the cuttings in this basket that was lined with coconut fiber. I took about 3 parts of Miracle-Gro potting mix and I added some perlite into it, probably 1 part. I didn't measure it out exactly, but it results in a nice fluffy potting mix with great drainage. So I planted about close to 2 dozen cuttings, individual node cuttings, inside of this 16-inch basket. Gave it a good water. And I created a second basket as well, an identical basket, with about the same amount of cuttings. And I actually left these outside. At the time of this video, this was about in late spring, and I left them outside for a few months until colder weather came. And about 6 months from planting the rooted cuttings, this is what the basket looks like, nice and full. And that's all, folks. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions or comments, make a comment on this video. I do try and respond to every single comment. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.